Hello ladies, 100% he will. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when, because no man who once tasted your presence, your attention, your energy, can live in peace without trying to come back. His ego will trick him into thinking he can return on his terms, but remember this, his message is not love, it's weakness, and when that text finally arrives, your reply must not be soft, not emotional, not forgiving. It must be brutal. Why? Because brutal does not mean cruel, it means controlled. It means powerful. It means cutting off his illusion that he still holds you. Do not rush. Do not celebrate his message. Let him wait. Let the silence stretch. That waiting will eat at him more than any insult. And when you do reply, keep it short. Keep it cold. Keep it detached. One sentence that tells him nothing about your feelings. No validation. No softness. Just indifference. Because indifference is the blade sharper than anger. He will read it again and again, looking for cracks, searching for hope. But he will find none. He expected the old softness, the easy forgiveness. Instead, he finds strength, and in that moment, he is destroyed. Your reply doesn't just end the conversation. It ends his control. It leaves him broken with one question burning in his mind. How did I lose her like this? And you, strong, silent, untouchable, walk away without another word. That silence after the brutal reply is the echo that haunts him forever, because yes, he will text you 100%, but with the right reply. You will make sure he never texts the same way again. The certainty of his return is not a question, it is a guarantee. He may vanish, he may stay silent, he may pretend to be strong, but silence is never permanent when the memory of you keeps echoing in his mind. No matter how far he goes, no matter how much pride he tries to wear like armor, his ego will not allow him to let you slip away completely. He will check his phone late at night, scrolling through old conversations, reading your words again, feeling the weight of your absence, and in that moment, the urge will rise in him to reach out. He might tell himself he won't, he might resist for a day, a week, even a month, but the pull always wins, because deep down, he knows he cannot replace the way you made him feel. He cannot find that same energy in anyone else. He cannot escape the reminder that you were different. And the more he tries to deny it, the louder it grows inside him until it becomes unbearable. That is why he will text you, because men don't forget what shook their ego. They don't forget the woman who stopped giving. They don't forget the silence that forced them to face themselves. They don't forget the one who no longer chases. His message is inevitable, his return is certain, his weakness is guaranteed, and the more he fights it, the more powerful that moment of surrender becomes, because every second of his silence only builds more pressure, more hunger, more desperation, until finally his pride cracks and his fingers type the words he swore he never would. And once he does, once he presses send, you already know. You've won, because his return was written from the very first moment he left. It was only ever a matter of time. It was only ever a matter of how long he could pretend. It was only ever a matter of when his ego would collapse under the weight of missing you. And that is why this truth does not end, because no matter how many times the cycle repeats, no matter how many times he disappears, he will always circle back. He will always test the waters. He will always return with a message. And you will always know that the certainty of his text is not a possibility. It is destiny without conclusion. It is a loop without ending. It is the proof that your presence leaves a mark he can never erase, and your silence creates a hunger he can never starve. Men and ego are inseparable, like shadow and body. One cannot exist without the other. When he goes silent, when he withdraws, when he suddenly stops giving you the attention he once poured so easily, it is never true strength, it is never peace, it is never him moving on. It is a performance, a test, a game his ego demands he plays. His silence is not the absence of words, it is the presence of calculation. He wants you to wonder, he wants you to feel uneasy, he wants you to chase, because to him, silence is not about healing, it is about control. And yet that control is fragile. It trembles underneath, because a man's ego cannot live without acknowledgement. It cannot breathe without attention. It cannot survive without knowing it still matters. That is why he hides behind silence, because it tricks him into feeling powerful. It convinces him that he is the one in control, but deep down he knows that every second he withholds words, he is gambling, he is risking, he is testing not only you but also himself. And the longer he stays quiet, the more he burns inside, the more he wonders what you are doing, the more he questions if you even notice he is gone. His ego tells him to wait, to delay, to act strong, but his heart betrays him. His mind betrays him. The silence betrays him, because silence, when stretched too far, stops being power and turns into weakness. And that weakness eats at him slowly, silently, endlessly. He cannot admit it, he cannot show it, but he feels it every night when his phone stays dark, when no message comes from you, when no call breaks his illusion of dominance. And the ego that once whispered she will chase begins to scream, begins to panic, begins to collapse under the weight of your indifference. That is why his silence is never true strength. It is a mask he wears until it cracks. It is a weapon that backfires in his own hands. It is a wall that eventually cages him in. He uses silence to test you, but in the end it is he who fails the test, because the longer he tries to control you with absence, the stronger you grow, the colder you become, the less he matters. And this realization terrifies him, because nothing destroys a man's ego more than losing control of the one he thought would always be there. So he stays quiet, he pretends, he hides, but each second of that silence is a countdown. Each hour is a weight pressing against his pride. Each day is another crack forming in the armor he tries to polish. He thinks he is powerful, but the truth is, he is trapped. He thinks he is in control, but the truth is, he is losing it. He thinks his silence is strength, but the truth is, it is weakness dressed as strength. It is desperation disguised as patience. It is fear pretending to be confidence. And this cycle does not end, because men and ego are forever chained, and every silence he throws at you is not proof of power. It is proof of fear, not proof of control, but proof of insecurity, not proof of strength, but proof that he cannot exist without testing, without pushing, without trying to feed an ego that will never be satisfied. And that is why his silence is never the victory he believes it to be. It is only the slow undoing of his pride. It is only the beginning of his collapse. It is only the mask that will eventually slip, revealing that all along, he was never in control. He was only pretending, and the pretending never ends. It keeps circling, it keeps looping, it keeps going without conclusion, because a man's ego will never admit defeat. Yet it is always defeated by the very silence it tries to use as a weapon. The power of patience is a weapon most people never learn to use, because in a world where everyone rushes, where everyone reacts, where everyone runs to prove they care, the one who waits becomes the one who controls. Waiting is not weakness. It is strength wrapped in silence. It is confidence hidden in stillness. It is the art of knowing that time is on your side, not his. When he goes silent, when he withdraws, when he thinks his absence will shake you, patience is the answer that destroys his illusion. Because while he believes you are restless, while he imagines you are pacing, waiting, overthinking, he does not realize that patience has flipped the roles. It is not you who suffers in the wait, it is him. The longer you remain still, the louder his thoughts become. The longer you hold back, the heavier his doubts grow. The longer you stay patient, the more restless he becomes. He cannot sit with silence the way you can. He cannot handle uncertainty the way you can. His ego needs feeding, his pride needs reassurance, his heart, though he will never admit it, needs attention. And the longer you wait, the more he feels the absence of it, the more he feels the emptiness he created for himself. Patience becomes a mirror, showing him what life feels like without you in it, and that reflection terrifies him. Patience is not about doing nothing. It is about letting him destroy himself in his own silence. It is about letting him sit with the discomfort of not knowing where you are, what you're thinking, who you're with. It is about forcing him to confront the fact that the world has continued moving without him, that your life has continued blooming without his presence, that you are not the one restless, he is. And the longer you wait, the deeper the restlessness digs into him, until he can no longer pretend to be calm, until he can no longer act like he has control, until he breaks the very silence he swore he would keep. This is why patience is power. It flips the script. It rewrites the story. It places you in control without ever lifting a finger. Because while he is restless, you are calm. While he is anxious, you are steady. While he is burning with questions, you are unbothered with answers. That imbalance is what destroys him, because men expect women to chase, to question, to react. But when you do not, when you sit still, when you wait with quiet strength, it rattles his core. He cannot process patience. He cannot compete with stillness. He cannot fight what he cannot touch. And so the longer you wait, the more the silence turns against him, the more the clock becomes his enemy, the more the days feel like punishment, because patience is not just about holding back. It is about letting him realize that he is the one who cannot endure, he is the one who cannot last, he is the one who cannot breathe without breaking. And this power of patience does not fade, it does not end, it keeps stretching, it keeps building. It keeps tightening around his ego like a rope that gets harder to escape from. Because the longer you can wait, the less he can bear it. The more restless he becomes, the more desperate he grows. The more certain it becomes that he will reach out first. And when he does, you will know it was not because you chased, not because you begged, not because you broke. It was because your patience broke him, your stillness shook him, your calmness consumed him, and that is the power of patience, a power that has no ending, a power that flows endlessly. Because waiting will always make him restless. Never you, waiting will always destroy his control, never yours. Waiting will always remind him that the one who has patience is the one who truly has the power. When he texts first, it is not just a message, it is not just a line of words glowing on a screen. It is an admission, a confession, a quiet surrender of the power he thought he held. For a man who once tried to act strong, who once chose silence, who once believed that pulling away would place him above you, the moment he sends that first message is the moment all of that pride collapses. Because no man breaks silence first unless the silence has already broken him. No man reaches out unless the weight of waiting has already crushed his ego. No man types your name unless the absence of your presence has already driven him restless. That text is not casual, it is not simple, it is not meaningless. It is loaded with everything he tried to bury. Every unanswered question, every restless night, every silent battle he fought with his own pride. All of it bleeds into that message. His words may look small, they may look harmless, they may even look cold, but the act of sending them reveals everything he tried to hide. It reveals that he could not win with silence. It reveals that he could not hold his control. It reveals that you have already outlasted him in patience. And in that moment, when his message appears, you must see it for what it truly is. Not a gift, not a victory of his, but a defeat he cannot disguise. Because men dress their weakness in simple words, "Hey, how are you?" A long time no talk. But beneath those words lies the truth. He gave in first. He could not resist. He could not hold back. He could not remain the man he pretended to be. And once he breaks that silence, once he admits weakness through action, he can never undo it. He can delete the text, he can reword it. He can pretend it was casual, but he knows and you know that the one who speaks first is the one who loses the game of control. This is why his first text matters so much. It is not about what he writes, it is about the fact that he wrote it all. It is not about the sentence, it is about the surrender. It is not about the tone, it is about the truth it exposes. And the truth is this: he needs your attention more than you need his. He needs your presence more than you need his. He needs your reply more than you need his silence. His ego may try to twist it. His pride may try to hide it, but the reality cannot be denied. When he texts first, he kneels before the very patience he thought would break you. And this cycle does not stop there. It keeps circling, it keeps repeating, because once he has texted first, he will do it again, and each time it gets easier for him to surrender. Each time it gets harder for him to hide his need. Each time it becomes clearer that his control is gone, that his silence was nothing but a mask, that his power was nothing but an illusion. The first text is the crack in his armor. The first text is the unraveling of his pride. The first text is the signal that everything he tried to build against you is falling apart. And it will keep falling, it will keep crumbling, it will keep breaking endlessly, because once a man admits weakness, even silently, even quietly, even in a message he pretends is nothing, he has already lost, he has already confessed, he has already destroyed the very image of strength he once tried to project, and that destruction never ends. It keeps echoing, it keeps haunting, it keeps living in the fact that he texted first, and that was the moment his weakness became undeniable. Your reply defines the power balance, because in every exchange of words there is an invisible scale tipping between control and surrender, and one single response can shift everything. The moment his text lands, the moment his weakness is revealed, the stage is set, and what you choose to say, or not say, it determines who walks away with power. If you rush, if you pour emotions, if you validate him too quickly, The balance tilts back into his favor, and he breathes again, thinking he still matters, thinking he still controls the rhythm. But if you hold steady, if you remain cold, if you reply with a sharp edge of indifference, suddenly the scale crashes in your direction. Suddenly the power he thought he reclaimed slips through his fingers. Suddenly he feels smaller, weaker, exposed. Your reply is not just words. It is energy, it is tone, it is the mirror you place in front of him that forces him to see where he truly stands. A short reply can echo louder than a paragraph. A delayed reply can cut deeper than anger. A reply stripped of validation can starve him more than silence itself. Because men expect softness, they expect warmth. They expect to be welcomed back no matter how they left. And when you deny that, when you flip the script with calm detachment, it unsettles him in ways he cannot explain. He rereads your message again and again, searching for comfort that isn't there, looking for clues that do not exist, feeling the weight of a reply that gives him nothing but emptiness. This is why your reply is the turning point. It is the judge's gavel. It is the hand on the scale. It is the invisible thread that either binds him tighter or cuts him loose. And once you understand that, once you realize the true weight of a single response, you begin to see how much control you hold. He may have texted first, but the game is not over until you decide how to answer. He may have shown weakness, but the real destruction happens when you choose not to feed his ego, when you choose not to hand him back the comfort he came looking for, when you choose to keep him hungry instead of satisfied. One brutal reply can undo him completely. Not because of cruelty, but because of clarity. Not because of insults, but because of indifference. Not because of anger, but because of calmness that shows you no longer need him. And the beauty of it is that he cannot fight it. He cannot argue with it. He cannot dismiss it. He cannot erase the way it makes him feel. He will stare at the screen. He will type and delete. He will wonder why you answered like that. He will replay the conversation in his head. But no matter what he does, the damage is done. The balance has shifted. The power has moved, and he is the one left chasing a reply that gave him nothing. And this cycle does not end, it keeps looping. It keeps building, because every reply that denies him validation chips away at his pride. Every short sentence slices deeper into his ego. Every calm dismissal reminds him that you are no longer where he left you, that you have risen above the place he thought you'd remain. Your reply becomes the silent punishment, the cold reminder, the undeniable proof that he no longer controls the script. And once that balance tips in your favor, once he feels the weight of his weakness against the strength of your words, there is no going back. The shift is permanent. The damage is lasting. The lesson is endless. Because power in conversation does not belong to the one who speaks first. It belongs to the one who replies last, the one who controls tone, the one who turns words into weapons, and that power once claimed keeps flowing, keeps echoing, keeps destroying the illusion he once held endlessly, without conclusion, forever tipping the scale in your favor. Never rush to answer, because speed is surrender, speed is hunger, speed is proof that you were waiting for him, watching the screen, hoping for the moment he returned. And nothing feeds a man's ego more than the idea that you are sitting there, ready to respond within seconds. That is why delay is not weakness. It is a weapon, sharp and quiet, invisible yet devastating. Every minute you hold back, every hour you let pass, every stretch of silence after his message becomes a battlefield he cannot win. He sent the text to regain control, but when no answer comes, when the clock keeps ticking, when the screen stays cold, he realizes control was never his. Delaying your reply is not ignoring. It is power disguised as patience. It is discipline in action. It is control in motion. Because while he waits, he imagines. He imagines where you are. He imagines who you're with. He imagines why you haven't replied. His imagination runs faster than any truth ever could. And that imagination becomes his punishment. He will check his phone every 5 minutes. He will reread his own message. He will start questioning if he said the wrong thing. He will replay scenarios in his mind, and the silence will burn louder than words. The beauty of delay is that it makes him restless while you remain calm. You go about your day, you breathe easily, you live without disruption, but he cannot escape the weight of waiting. His patience is weak, his ego fragile, his pride brittle, and the longer you make him wait, the more cracks appear. He will not show it, he will not admit it, but inside the pressure builds. Because in his world, silence is supposed to be his weapon, but when you turn it against him, when you master it with patience, when you use it to stretch his anxiety, suddenly he is the one trapped, suddenly he is the one powerless, suddenly he is the one destroyed by the very tool he thought would defeat you. Delay is a silent declaration, you are not my priority. A delay is a reminder, I do not chase you. A delay is proof, I have control, not you. And the longer the delay, the deeper the wound. Because by the time you finally choose to answer, he is no longer the confident man who sent the message. He is the restless man who doubted, who panicked, who replayed 1,000 possibilities, only to realize that he means far less to you than you once meant to him. And here is the endless truth. Delay never loses power. The first time you delay, he questions. The second time you delay, he doubts. The third time you delay, he fears. And with every delay, the weapon grows sharper, the silence grows heavier. The restlessness grows louder, until he can no longer pretend he holds control. Because he doesn't, you do, delay proves it. Delay cements it. Delay is the invisible chain around his pride that keeps tightening, tightening, tightening with no end, no mercy, no escape. The longer you master delay, the weaker he becomes, the more desperate his messages sound, the more obvious his weakness shows, and the cycle continues endlessly, because delay is not just a pause in time. It is a strike at his ego, a cut at his pride, a reminder that you will never be rushed. You will never be small, you will never be at his mercy. Delay is the weapon that never dulls, the weapon that keeps cutting, the weapon that destroys him slowly, endlessly, without ever needing to stop. Short replies hurt more than long explanations because length gives comfort, but brevity gives pain. When you write long paragraphs, when you pour emotions, when you explain yourself, he feels fed. He feels seen, he feels important, because your words give him validation. But when you cut it short, when you strip your reply to the bare minimum, when you leave no softness, no detail, no comfort, suddenly his chest tightens. Suddenly he realizes he is not worth your time, not worth your effort, not worth the energy of your words. And that realization breaks him in ways silence alone cannot, because silence leaves him guessing, but short replies leave him knowing. Knowing that you saw his message, knowing that you read his words, knowing that you understood him completely, but still, you chose to give him nothing more than a cold fragment, a word, a line, a closed response that leads nowhere. He cannot twist it, he cannot stretch it, he cannot read between the lines because there is nothing there. Just emptiness, just indifference, just proof that the energy is gone. Short replies are sharp because they reverse the roles. Once he was the one who sent short texts, the one who kept it dry, the one who thought he could make you chase by giving you crumbs. But now, you are the one handing him crumbs, and it unsettles him. Because when a man gets back his own behavior, when he feels the same coldness he once dished out, his ego shatters. He expected tears, he expected paragraphs, he expected explanations. But instead he got one word, one sentence, one reply that slices through his pride like glass. And here is where the pain multiplies. The shorter the reply, the longer he thinks about it. A simple okay will live in his head longer than a 3-page explanation. A single sure will echo louder than an essay of emotions. Because the fewer the words, the more his mind fills the silence around them. He imagines what you meant. He wonders why you stopped caring. He questions if someone else has your attention. He doubts his place, and those doubts grow louder the shorter you keep it. This is why short replies are not weakness. They are warfare. They are not avoidance. They are precision. They are not passive. They are active destruction, and the more you practice it, the more you master it, the more he crumbles. Because every short reply is a mirror reminding him that he no longer matters, that he no longer controls the conversation, that he no longer has the ability to pull more from you. And nothing kills a man's ego faster than realizing that he is not worth your words. And the truth is this, short replies never end their effect. They keep echoing, they keep haunting, they keep scratching at his pride long after he reads them. Because every time he looks back, every time he scrolls up, every time he sees how little you gave, it reopens the wound. Long texts close doors because they give closure, but short replies leave doors half open, half broken, dangling, offering nothing but confusion. And that confusion destroys him more than anger ever could. So keep them short, keep them sharp, keep them endless, because 1. Word replies are not silence. They are louder than silence. They are not empty. They are heavy with meaning. They are not small. They are massive in impact. And once he feels their sting, once he sees how little he gets, once he realizes that you now reply like he never mattered, he will never stop chasing, he will never stop doubting, he will never stop burning inside. Because short replies are not the end of conversation. They are the end of his control, the end of his comfort, the end of his pride, and that ending never truly ends. It keeps repeating. It keeps echoing. It keeps destroying endlessly, without pause, without mercy, without conclusion. Emotional detachment is brutal because nothing disarms a man more than the absence of the reaction he expected. Anger he can handle, tears he can dismiss, explanations he can ignore. But cold detachment, that is the cut he cannot survive. Because anger still shows feeling, tears still show attachment, long replies still show that you care enough to explain. But when you are detached, when your words carry no warmth, when your tone is icy and flat, it pierces him in ways rage never could. Coldness tells him that he no longer has access to your emotions, that the fire he once played with has burned out, that the connection he once relied on has dissolved into nothing, and nothing is more brutal than realizing he no longer has the power to move you. Detachment is not loud, it is not dramatic, it does not scream or cry. It whispers in silence, it speaks in short words, it lingers in the emptiness of a flat reply. And that silence, that brevity, that emptiness, it cuts deeper than any insult. Because insults can be denied, anger can be deflected, but detachment cannot be fought. How do you argue with indifference? How do you battle with someone who no longer reacts? How do you win against a wall that does not move? You cannot. That is why detachment destroys him. When he reads your words and finds no emotion in them, he panics. He rereads them, hoping to find something, anything, that gives him comfort, but there is none. He looks for anger because anger means you still care. He looks for softness because softness means there's hope. He looks for explanation because explanation means you still need him to understand. But when he finds none of these, when he finds only cold detachment, he is forced to face the truth. You have disconnected, you have elevated, you have cut the tie without needing to say it directly. And that is what breaks him, not the words themselves, but the emptiness within them, because he cannot fight emptiness, he cannot twist emptiness, he cannot fix emptiness, he can only sit with it, and sitting with it destroys him from within. Detachment is a mirror that shows him his insignificance. It tells him, you no longer have power here. It tells him, you no longer control my emotions. It tells him, you have lost the access you once took for granted. And the truth is, cold words will always cut deeper than hot anger. Because anger fades, but detachment lingers. Anger burns quickly, but detachment freezes slowly. Anger ends in fire, but detachment leaves him in ice that never melts. And the colder you become, the more desperate he grows, the more he fights for warmth, the more he tries to reignite a flame that no longer exists. But the more he tries, the more he fails, because once you master detachment, once you no longer let him move you, once you no longer let him provoke you, he is powerless. And this cycle never ends, because the more detached you are, the more obsessed he becomes. The colder your words, the hotter his desperation. The less you give, the more he chases. The less you feel, the more he breaks. Detachment is brutal not because it hurts loudly, but because it kills silently, slowly, endlessly. And once you embrace it, once you let coldness replace reaction, once you let detachment guide every reply, you will see his pride collapse, his ego crumble, his strength dissolve. Because he can fight passion, he can fight anger, he can fight explanation, but he cannot fight nothingness. And nothingness, once given, has no end, no limit, no mercy. It keeps cutting, it keeps destroying, it keeps echoing endlessly without ever needing to stop. Do not give validation, because validation is the food his ego cannot live without. Every word of reassurance you give, every explanation you hand him, every little sign that shows you still care, it feeds him, it heals him, it gives him the illusion that he still holds weight in your life. And that is exactly why you must deny it, because the denial of validation is not just silence, it is starvation. It is the slow, deliberate cutting off of the supply that his pride depends on. Understand this, his ego is addicted to your attention. The moment you validate him, even slightly, you revive him. A simple "I understand" or "I miss you too." is enough to rebuild the confidence he lost. That is why he texts you. Not always because he cares, not always because he loves, but because he craves the hit of validation only you can give. He needs to know you still think of him. He needs to know he still matters. He needs to know that he still has a place in your heart, even if it is small. And if you give it, even once, you strengthen him, you give him back the control, you undo the power of your silence. But when you deny it, when you give no softness, no reassurance, no fuel to his ego, something inside him begins to collapse. He starts doubting himself in ways he never thought possible. He wonders why you're not reacting the way you once did. He questions if he has lost his place completely. He replays every memory, searching for proof that you still care, but finding none. And that void destroys him, because a man can handle anger, a man can handle rejection, but what he cannot handle is emptiness. And emptiness is exactly what the denial of validation feels like. This is why your greatest weapon is not insults, not long speeches, not dramatic gestures. It is the quiet refusal to feed his need for attention. He wants you to confirm his importance. He wants you to soothe his pride. He wants you to remind him that no matter how he treated you, you are still there. But when you withhold it, when you keep your words flat, when you refuse to say what he longs to hear, he spirals. He checks his phone endlessly. He rereads your short replies. He wonders if someone else has taken his place. He begins to feel what he wanted you to feel: insecurity, doubt, restlessness. And here lies the endless truth. Once you stop giving validation, he will never stop chasing it. He will try harder, he will message more, he will test different tones, different approaches, different tactics, all in the hope of drawing out the softness you once gave freely. But the more he tries, the more he fails. The more he reaches, the more he realizes there is nothing left to grab, and that realization eats at him endlessly, because the absence of validation is not just silence, it is punishment, it is power, it is control. And the cycle keeps looping. Each time he texts, he is hoping for crumbs. Each time you deny him, he weakens further. Each time you refuse to validate, he doubts himself more deeply. And the hunger grows, the craving intensifies, the desperation deepens, until he is no longer the man who once held pride. He is the man begging silently for attention he no longer deserves. That is why denial never ends. Because his craving never ends, his ego will always hunger, his pride will always seek, his heart will always chase. But your refusal becomes the cage he cannot escape. And the longer you deny him, the tighter the cage becomes, the darker it feels, the heavier it grows, until finally he is destroyed not by anger, not by rejection, but by the endless, merciless denial of the validation he craves and will never receive. The more calm you are, the more he breaks inside. Because calmness is not weakness, it is strength hidden in silence, it is control wrapped in stillness, it is power that speaks without raising its voice. He expects fire, he expects rage, he expects the storm. But when he finds still waters instead, he drowns in them. Because calmness tells him the truth he cannot bear. You are not moved anymore, you are not shaken anymore, you are not burning anymore. And nothing terrifies a man more than realizing that the woman who once reacted, who once felt, who once gave him her energy, now greets him with serenity so cold it feels like a blade. Calmness is brutal because it reflects his weakness. When he sends a message hoping to stir something inside you, hoping to see if he still matters, hoping to poke at your emotions, and you respond with clarity, with control, with peace, he realizes he has lost his effect. He cannot trigger you anymore, he cannot shake you anymore, he cannot pull you into chaos anymore, and that realization cuts him deeper than anger ever could, because anger means you still care. Calmness means you have outgrown him. And the quieter your tone, the louder his doubts become. He begins to question why you are so composed. He begins to wonder what changed. He begins to suspect that you no longer think of him the way he thinks of you. And that suspicion grows, it twists, it gnaws at his pride. Because men survive on the illusion that they leave you trembling, desperate, waiting. But calmness destroys that illusion. Calmness is proof that he is no longer the storm. He is the one left in it. The more calm you are, the more chaos he feels. He will type long messages trying to provoke you. He will push, test, and bait you into reacting. He will hope for anger because anger gives him power, anger feeds his ego, anger proves you still feel. But when you answer without heat, when you answer without emotion, when you remain steady as stone, he breaks. because calmness tells him the truth he cannot fight. You are above him now, and here lies the endless brutality of calmness. It never loses its effect. Each calm reply cuts, each calm silence suffocates, each calm dismissal reminds him that his grip is gone, and the calmer you remain, the more desperate he becomes. He will replay your tone in his head, searching for cracks, searching for signs of weakness, but finding none. He will wonder if you've moved on. He will wonder if someone else has your attention. He will wonder why he no longer matters, and that wondering will eat at him endlessly. Because calmness is not just the absence of chaos, it is the presence of control. Calmness is not passive, it is active destruction. Calmness is not empty, it is heavy with meaning. It tells him, I have won. It tells him, I no longer need to fight. It tells him, you cannot reach me anymore. And once he feels that, once he sees that, once he tastes the icy truth of your calm, his pride collapses. His ego crumbles. His strength dissolves, and it never ends. The more calm you remain, the weaker he grows. The more calm you are, the louder his doubts scream. The more calm you become, the more frantic his energy turns. Until finally he is left in a storm of his own making, breaking under the weight of your serenity, destroyed by the peace he cannot touch, undone by the calmness that never fades, never bends, never ends. Silence after his text is louder than any reply, because words can be twisted, words can be argued with, words can be reread until he convinces himself they meant something else. But silence leaves no escape. Silence leaves no interpretation. Silence leaves no comfort. Silence forces him to sit in the void of his own making. And that void screams louder in his head than any sentence you could ever write. Because silence is not absence. It is presence without effort. It is rejection without confrontation. It is power without noise. When you leave him unanswered, he is not at peace. He is restless. He checks his phone every few minutes. He stares at the screen, refreshing, waiting for the reply that never comes. His mind races, his thoughts spiral, his ego trembles. He wonders if you saw his message. He wonders if you are ignoring him. He wonders if you are busy, or worse, with someone else. That wondering eats him alive, because silence does not give closure. Silence does not give clarity. Silence gives nothing, and it is that nothing that destroys him more than anger ever could. Silence is heavy because it forces him to confront himself. When you don't reply, he has no distraction, no shield, no excuse. He is left alone with his own doubts, his own fears, his own insecurities. He replays everything in his head, trying to figure out where he went wrong, why you are no longer reacting, what changed in you. And the more he thinks, the more restless he becomes, because silence is not just the absence of words. It is the presence of control, and here lies the brutality of silence. It gives you peace while giving him torment. You are free, calm, detached, while he is trapped, anxious, unsettled. You move on with your day, he drowns in questions. You live, he lingers, you rise, he breaks, because silence is not shared equally. Silence is light for you, but heavy for him. And that imbalance crushes him. The louder he wants you to be, the quieter you become. The more he pushes, the more you withdraw. The more he tries to provoke, the less you respond. And each second of that silence feels like a year in his chest. He cannot bear it, but he cannot escape it either. Because silence is a mirror, and in that mirror he sees the truth. He is no longer in control, and it never ends, because silence is not a one-time weapon. It is a cycle. The first unanswered text plants doubt. The second unanswered text grows fear. The third unanswered text confirms weakness, and each time the weight multiplies. He becomes addicted to chasing the reply that never comes, and in that endless chase he destroys himself. This is why silence is louder than words, because words fade but silence lingers. Words can be forgotten but silence echoes. Words can be misread but silence is undeniable. And once you master silence, once you stop rewarding him with replies, once you let him sit in the emptiness of his own choices, you win without moving, you break him without touching, you destroy him without speaking. And that destruction does not stop, it does not fade, it does not end, it keeps echoing, keeps burning, keeps breaking him endlessly, until silence itself becomes the loudest sound he hears, the heaviest weight he carries, the deepest wound he cannot heal. Every unanswered text becomes his silent defeat, because each time he reaches out and hears nothing back, it is proof that his pride has failed, his control has cracked, his importance has vanished. A man can convince himself that one silence means nothing, that one ignored message can be overlooked. But when it happens again and again and again, the weight piles up like bricks on his chest. Every unanswered text is another reminder that he no longer moves you, that his words no longer hold power, that his presence no longer demands reaction. And that realization is a defeat louder than any rejection. Because unanswered messages are not empty. They are heavy with meaning. They are you saying without speaking, "You are not worth my time. You are not worth my energy. You are not worth the movement of my fingers across the screen." That absence is louder than anger, stronger than argument, sharper than explanation. Because anger still proves he got to you. Silence proves he cannot reach you anymore. And that is why every unanswered text cuts deeper than 1,000 replies could. He sends a message, expecting to pull you back in, expecting to feed his ego, expecting to confirm that he still matters. But when the hours pass, when the screen stays cold, when his message sits there unread or unanswered, he feels smaller, weaker, forgotten. He tells himself you might be busy, he tells himself you'll reply later, he tells himself not to worry. But deep down he knows the truth he doesn't want to face. You saw it, you chose not to answer, you chose to leave him hanging, you chose to let him taste his own insignificance. And that choice destroys him, because each unanswered text is not just silence. It is a scoreboard. He sent the message, he lost. He reached out, he failed. He broke first, and you didn't bend. And the more this happens, the clearer the pattern becomes, until his ego can no longer hide behind excuses. He is the one chasing, he is the one trying, he is the one losing over and over with every unanswered attempt. And the destruction does not stop there, it lingers, it multiplies, it repeats. Because every time he scrolls back up, every time he looks at the messages left hanging, every time he sees the empty space where your reply should be, it stings again. Unanswered texts are not just defeats in the moment, they are permanent reminders of his weakness. They sit in the conversation thread like scars, each one screaming louder than the last, "You don't matter anymore." And the cycle has no ending. First unanswered text plants doubt. The second unanswered text breaks pride. The third unanswered text shatters ego, and each new silence stacks on top of the last until the weight becomes unbearable. He cannot erase it, he cannot undo it, he cannot pretend it didn't happen. It sits there, permanent, undeniable proof that you no longer validate him, no longer chase him, no longer fear losing him. That is why every unanswered text is not small. It is massive, not quiet. It is deafening, not harmless. It is destruction because it tells him again and again that he has lost you, and every repetition is another defeat, another collapse, another break. And the beauty of it? You don't even have to move. You don't even have to speak. You don't even have to lift a finger. His own message becomes his own downfall, his own attempt becomes his own defeat, his own words become the silence that kills him. And that defeat never ends, it keeps echoing, it keeps haunting, it keeps breaking him endlessly without pause, without conclusion, without mercy. Your indifference is his deepest punishment, because anger he can survive, hatred he can endure, even heartbreak he can twist into pride. But indifference is the one thing he cannot fight, cannot explain, cannot escape. When you are indifferent, you are not angry, you are not wounded, you are not waiting. You are simply free, and that freedom burns him alive. Because indifference is proof that he no longer matters, that he no longer touches your soul, that he no longer holds a place in your heart. It is not rejection with words, it is rejection with silence. It is not war, it is surrender, but a surrender where you win and he loses. Indifference is brutal because it tells him he does not exist in your world anymore. He texts and you don't react. He tries to provoke and you don't move. He waits for signs of care and you give none. And the more you show nothing, the more he feels nothingness consume him. Because a man can tolerate pain if it comes with passion. But when you show no fire, no spark, no energy, when your tone is flat, when your presence is cold, when your reply is mechanical, he realizes you are no longer emotionally invested. And that truth is more unbearable than any insult you could throw. Indifference is not loud, it is quiet, but in that quiet lies the sharpest blade. He cannot argue with it. He cannot debate it. He cannot twist it, because indifference is not a game, it is not performance. It is real. It tells him you have stepped away completely, that his actions no longer reach you, that his voice no longer echoes inside you. And once he realizes this, once he sees that you are not just pretending but truly detached, he crumbles. And what makes indifference endless is that it repeats every single time he tries. He sends a message, hoping for softness. You give indifference. He sends another, hoping for anger. You give indifference. He waits, hoping you'll break first. You remain indifferent. Every attempt becomes another bruise, another reminder, another silent punishment he cannot endure. He cannot win against it, because how do you fight someone who doesn't care enough to fight back? How do you break someone who refuses to feel? How do you defeat indifference when indifference has already defeated him, and the cycle never stops? Because the more indifferent you are, the more desperate he becomes. The more desperate he becomes, the more he reaches. The more he reaches, the more indifference he faces, and the more indifference he faces, the deeper he breaks. It is a loop with no ending, a punishment with no escape, a sentence with no release. He falls deeper into the void you create, and that void is filled not with noise but with silence. Silence that screams, silence that crushes, silence that reminds him endlessly that he no longer has value in your eyes. This is why indifference is not weakness. It is ultimate strength. It is the weapon that requires no energy yet delivers endless destruction. It is the punishment that does not fade, does not soften, does not expire. Because once you master indifference, once you no longer rise or fall with his words, once you no longer react at all, he has lost you forever. And that loss is not just a moment. It is eternal. It keeps haunting, keeps echoing, keeps burning him endlessly, without limit, without conclusion, without mercy. Short replies will suffocate his ego because they are not just words. They are boundaries, walls, signals of disinterest that choke the pride he once carried like armor. He sends long, dramatic texts, hoping to stir your emotions, hoping to reel you back in, hoping to spark the old fire. And what does he receive? A single word. A flat sentence. A cold, sharp reply that slices through all his effort. Nothing suffocates a man's ego more than realizing that where he gave paragraphs, you gave silence disguised as a reply. Short replies are not weak. They are suffocatingly powerful. Because they show that you read his words, you saw his attempt, you acknowledged it, and yet you gave him almost nothing back. That nothing is everything. It tells him you no longer matter. You no longer control me. You no longer deserve my energy. Each time he reads your short, cold response, his chest tightens, his pride collapses, his confidence sinks. He cannot breathe under the weight of your indifference. And the beauty of short replies is that they trap him in a cycle of desperation. He will reread them, searching for hidden meaning, twisting them into something more than they are. He will tell himself maybe she's just busy. He will tell himself maybe she still cares but doesn't want to show it. He will tell himself maybe there's still hope. But deep down he knows. He knows that every okay, every sure, every fine is not casual. It is calculated. It is proof that his voice no longer shakes you, his words no longer move you, his presence no longer excites you. And the more he tries to escape it, the tighter it squeezes, because each short reply suffocates him a little more. Each cold response drains the oxygen from his pride. Each clipped word becomes a rope around his ego's neck. He cannot fight it. He cannot undo it. He cannot demand more without admitting his weakness. He is left gasping, suffocating, crumbling beneath the quiet power of your brevity. Short replies are brutal because they deny him the two things he craves most: validation and attention. He wants you to explain, to argue, to react, but you do not. He wants you to give paragraphs, but you don't. He wants to feel important again, but your cold replies remind him he is not, and that denial cuts deeper than rage ever could. Because rage would prove you still care, but short, detached replies prove you do not, and the cycle has no ending. Because the more short replies you give, the more desperate he becomes. The more desperate he becomes, the longer his messages grow. The longer his messages grow, the shorter your replies remain. And the shorter they remain, the more suffocated he feels. Until finally, he is left drowning in his own need, choking on his own ego, gasping for validation that will never come. That is why short replies are not small. They are massive, not weak. They are lethal, not casual. They are calculated destruction. Because each one cuts off his air a little more, tightens the noose a little more, reminds him of his insignificance a little more. And this suffocation has no pause, no relief, no ending. It keeps pressing, keeps squeezing, keeps breaking him endlessly, until his ego collapses under the weight of your brevity, suffocated by replies so short yet so deadly, leaving him destroyed, choking forever on the silence between your words. His pride will shatter when he realizes he no longer controls your emotions, because control is the one illusion he clings to, the one crown he wears, the one lie he tells himself at night, that no matter what happens, he can still affect you. He believes he can still trigger your anger, still spark your tears, still provoke your replies. He thinks his presence still lives rent, free in your mind, his absence still burns holes in your heart. But when he texts you and sees no reaction, when he throws bait and you do not bite, when he tests your patience and you do not flint, everything collapses. His ego falls to pieces because the truth pierces him like a dagger. He no longer has power here, and nothing kills a man's pride faster than losing emotional control over someone he thought would always care. Because anger shows attachment, jealousy shows care, even sadness shows he still matters, but when he sees nothing, no heat, no spark, no reaction, he is forced to accept that his grip has loosened, that his influence has died, that the empire of control he once ruled over has crumbled to dust. His pride, once untouchable, becomes fragile glass, and your indifference is the hammer that smashes it again and again. This shattering is not loud, it is quiet, but it echoes inside him endlessly. He replays the past, remembering when you used to respond instantly, when your emotions rose and fell with his words, when your world shifted around his presence. And then he looks at the present, you calm, detached, indifferent, and he cannot reconcile the difference. He cannot accept that the fire is gone, that his power has expired, that his control has ended. The shock breaks him because he never imagined you would stop reacting. He always believed he would remain the center of your emotional universe. But when he realizes he is not, his pride cracks, splinters, and falls apart piece by piece. And here lies the endless brutality. Once pride shatters, it cannot be rebuilt. He can lie to himself, he can pretend you still care, he can tell others he still matters, but deep down he knows. He knows that his words no longer move you. His presence no longer stirs you. His absence no longer hurts you. And that knowledge becomes his cage. Every time he texts, he hopes to prove himself wrong. Every time you remain detached, he proves himself right, and each proof is another fracture in his already broken pride. This cycle has no ending, because pride does not heal when faced with indifference. It decays. The longer he feels your emotional distance, the weaker he becomes. The weaker he becomes, the harder he tries. The harder he tries, the colder you remain. The colder you remain, the faster his pride shatters. And once pride is gone, once the illusion of control is destroyed, he is no longer the man he thought he was. He is just a shadow, desperate, restless, broken, chasing a reaction he will never receive. And the beauty of it all, you don't need to raise your voice, you don't need to argue, you don't need to fight. All you have to do is remain untouched, unmoved, unshaken. And that calmness, that indifference, that refusal to let him control your emotions, it is the hammer that smashes his pride over and over again, and it never stops, it never softens, it never ends. His pride will keep shattering each time he reaches, each time he fails, each time he realizes again that the power is gone forever, broken into pieces that can never be restored endlessly, relentlessly, mercilessly. And in the end, his texts will not be victories. They will be reminders of his defeats. Every word he sends will echo back to him as silence. Every attempt will expose his weakness. Every message will be a reflection of how powerless he has become. You don't need to fight him. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to beg or prove anything. Your silence is louder than anger. Your calm is sharper than rage. Your indifference is heavier than rejection. He will keep reaching. He will keep failing. He will keep breaking. Because the truth is simple. When a man loses control over your emotions, he loses everything. And no matter how many times he tries, no matter how desperate his words become, no matter how many masks of pride he wears, he will never win again. You are free, you are untouchable, you are beyond his reach. And that freedom, that untouchable calm, that endless silence, will destroy him not once, not twice, but forever.